If you're a driven, active person who wants to reach and pursue a higher quality life with some ambition, then guess what? This podcast is for you. This is the Driven Athlete Podcast. What's up, y'all? It's your man, Dr. Kyle. Welcome back to the Driven Athlete Podcast. We got the man, the myth, the legend with us, Joey D. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you coming in and sharing some insights with us.
Yeah, it's fun to do stuff like this. I mean, information is opportunity for people, and we like to look at it, in many similar ways. So you and I working together, and having met you a while ago, I was very excited about what you do, and to be here on your show is exciting. So yeah. Cool.
I appreciate that. All right. So share people with about where you're at, what y'all do, and what y'all offer in your facility.
Many years ago, the PGA Tour started to see this migration, if you would, of golfers moving to South Florida. And I mean, there's always been a certain amount of tour players in South Florida, but golf started to really find its true home for many touring professionals right here in our market. So
yeah, I mean, I know
15 years ago, that's when it happened.
Gardens and Jupiter is like the mecca for.
Yeah, and I think because of what happened, we had the opportunity to take a look at how we could service, and provide service in a very similar way that we did on tour right there in Jupiter, and that's kind of how it happened. All these players were moving from everywhere, and yeah.
Do you think there's a reason why this area specifically?
Yeah, I think what happened was, golf just got. I think it's always been good here, but I think as people started to develop this area, like golf course designers, more and more opportunities came available for players to play all year long and practice and live in a way that was easy to get to and from. And that really provides the opportunity for athletes. There's a reason why spring training is always in really nice places,
right?
In baseball and football, and
warm places.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it happened. And I saw an opportunity that was, right there in front of me, and I said, I've got to put something together that gives the players that I work with on tour a home base, because very dissimilar to baseball or football or hockey or, NBA, where you have, your home and away. These guys can always train when they're at home, but there's no really, of course there's commercial gyms, but that doesn't, that does not qualify for what they're used to as professional athletes in their own environment. That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
So what was that vision then? It was, how can I service these athletes?
Yeah, I think the vision was, as we saw more and more coming to this area, because I work with them on tour, right, day in and day out, and you get to have this sense of community that you build, and it's sort of like a family out there, in like no dissimilar to any other sporting organization. But what we were missing was the part where where's their home base, where's their brick and mortar spot, and I saw that opportunity, and I just said, let's create what we have on tour, and then let's duplicate the environment so they feel right at home. And that's as simple as it was. Cool. It just was timing in life.
Where did you? So a little bit more about your background, right? Well, before we get into that, I want to ask more. So Hit It Great is the facility y'all are at now, right?
Yeah. So Hit It Great, the evolution of it was Joey D Golf, yeah. Right? And that was just the name for what my cousin decided to call it, right? We needed a place in sport where we quantified what we did. So Joey D Golf brand was born, and it was basically my methodology of how we worked on tour, what we created, and how I was able to look at, the challenges of golfers specifically, and where was the opportunity to put together a system and methods that worked for players that, gave them opportunity for where they were doing things really well, and then what were they doing not well, and then how was what they were doing affecting their performance, either practicing or on the course, right? So when you look at it as a PT, and yourself a coach, and how you look at things with the human body, not exactly through the same, lens, because everybody might have the same amount of muscles and bones, but we don't all move the same and feel the same. So putting that together, a system that they were able to feel comfortable with, and the word that I use is trust, right? Yeah. That really was the genesis of it all. Like, you can't fake golf. So a lot of people want to take ownership of a space without ever doing the time and really putting in the time to understand how you do it and how does it fit in with the physical part of, what is the human body's participation. And kind of when we were able to build a tour model and you start to build the trust of the players on tour, then you can actually take that anywhere. So background is that many, 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 many years ago, the tour did create a program and we're looking for people that wanted to be in that space with them. And it really does come down, the truth be told, a lot of times is not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And I just happen to know somebody that was a tour executive and said, hey, we got this program. And I met him through a friend of mine who happened to do all the travel on the PGA Tour. So we got together and kind of just like you and I are doing today, we brainstormed and there it was. It happened just like that. It was that, kind of organic. And, I went up and relocated to Ponte Vedra and I started working with guys like Jesper Parnevik and Vijay Singh who lived there. And, that was really the beginning of how we saw this evolution of where golf was changing. Because if you think about golf, you look back 2 decades ago and guys were not doing what they're doing today. Like it
was looked down upon, right?
Yeah, I think it was looked down upon. It was feared. They didn't know enough about it. And I think many times the barrier of entry in anything as a pioneer, and that's kind of, you don't even want to use that word sometimes to tell people how old you are, but that being said, we can talk about that. You and I joked about that the other day about age and health, but I think what happened was when the tour understood the necessity of having treatment facilities and training facilities, and how do they get their head around like this is a mobile operation like NASCAR, right? So they actually did get together with guys from NASCAR and they fabricated basically a mobile operation that required this enormous amount of logistics and like technical ability to understand how do we move this from week to week, because there's so many tour events that it was really interesting. And then how do you keep it from like coming undone? And that's where the NASCAR engineers who build these trailers and, they came into the picture and we all got together and we were able to kind of put together this program and opportunity that just it rolled out and it became a part of what they did. It was a slow evolution. Like not a lot of players at first would come and participate because like, I can't do this, it's going to hurt my golf swing, which was not dissimilar to what happened in baseball even a decade before that. Like, baseball evolved and everybody thought like that mindset of if I get muscle bound or I get too big and bulky, I'm not going to be able to like play my sport. And that's kind of the background of how it all happened. So, here we are. If we roll it, forward today, you and I could sit here and argue. If you look at athletes years ago, like even in the NBA, like look at the evolution of humanity. Like look at the human being, how players were just lanky and tall, but like ectomorphic. And, I look at you and I even said to you the other day when I saw you in the academy, I'm like, my gosh, you're like even bigger and more fit and stronger looking. Like,
I appreciate that.
But the truth be told is when you think about what's available and then just through like our own evolution of understanding, like just nutrition and optimizing, like what is sustenance and what are calories and what of like really good healthy food mean for human performance, and then how do we factor in recovery, and then what are training facilities like? It's a big enormous piece that takes time to understand how to build a system, and that's what I think we did. And I don't always like to say I did, but I took a page out of maybe many books and decided that working with the players very specifically at a very high level, because when you're at the top of sport, you have the opportunity to really look at like this amazing sample size that gives you the most information because they play at the highest level. And then from the system you build, you then have the ability, to obviously if it's something that you're passionate about, write books and create like a system that helps everybody, not just pros. So the whole evolution kind of happened over 2.5 decades, right? And I think now more than ever, people are intrigued by how can I move better? How can I feel better? Which is a lot about what you do for us at the Academy, right? And how can I play better? And if you can get those components in, right? And then you put a fourth one on, if there was another one that said, how can I live more in a healthy lifestyle, all of what came before that? You put it together and here you are with the modern day athlete. And, you know, I come into your place, you invite me in, and I was really impressed because I didn't know. Like, I thought I was walking into your office with the treatment table.
Yeah.
And I walk into, basically, if you look at PT 2 decades ago, they probably didn't think about it that way.
Squat racks.
Like they would be like, oh my gosh, this guy's crazy. He's like, he's not a traditional, physical therapist or doctorate in physical therapy. Like, we don't do this, and that's pushing the limits. But really what you're doing is you're taking evolution and going, you don't want to be afraid of this. This is in the right way that we do this. Like, you're going to be better and stronger and live healthier than you ever have. And
Right.
I think that's really where you look at, like, everybody coming together as professionals.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting. Well, because our clinic definitely looks like a gym, you know what I mean? Like a training facility. And the reason why, like, I always felt that being authentic, as in, like, here's what I enjoy doing and the people that we enjoy helping. And they come to see us, and, like, so I do I'm a power lifter, right? Or I'm an Olympic lifter, or I do CrossFit, or I'm a high level, I golf all the time. And I went to my orthopedic, or my physician, internal med physician, which is super important. And they were telling me to stop or to rest, or that what I'm doing is hurting myself. And I'm like, well, do you like playing golf? Or do you like exercising intensely? Like, oh yeah, like, this is what I do, or running marathons. And I'm like, all right, great. How can we get you back to doing the thing that you want? And there's a way to do it in a most effective, efficient way that's not going to affect negatively your longevity of, like, my joints are going to hurt worse over time. This is going to be actually beneficial for you. If this kind of lifestyle is maintained at a reasonable way, we can just teach you how to move. We can fix joint mobility disparities. We can fix muscle recruitment, movement disparities, and overall the movement system impairment that caused the issue in the first place, and get you back to doing the way you want without having to rest or taking chronic, ibuprofen or something like that, right? Or like Tylenol, whatever.
Yeah, so you treat out of the scope of what society thinks is the way to do it, right?
What they want.
They became very used to, I need to fix, I need it immediately right now, and I don't want it to work, right? So
immediate gratification.
Yeah, and you look at it from a very different perspective, and that's what I mean when I say to listeners, like, where PTs treated 2 decades ago is not where you have evolved to, or what I walked into today. Or if you look at our facility in Jupiter, that we can talk about that, like, it has evolved through 15 years, basically on, necessity, but also that necessity came along with opportunity, with technology, and the ability for companies in that space to provide equipment and ability for athletes to understand how to use it and then apply it to their sports specific use. So, it was for me an evolution as well. Like, I didn't really know that it was going to end up being like it is today, but I see the most amazing transformations of athletes coming in there from, like, it was only golf when we started, but because, sports agents who we all know, each other, and, these guys all play golf and other sports. So that's the common denominator. And then before you know it, you got Major League Baseball and NFL and NHL guys. And it was interesting to watch the evolution of what happened organically. Like, we never forced that. It just was like this small inside world of athletes, agents, and coaches who knew us and we knew them. And it became what it is today. And you're part of it. You see it. Like, there's never any given day where you don't see a dozen professional athletes in there. But that's not the big misconception. Is for years they thought that Joey D Golf or Hit It Great was just for professional athletes. And I think it's for anybody who wants to really step outside the traditional commercial gym box and get into a facility where they have the ability to talk to you or the coaches that we have in there and understand the difference of what does a true screen look like. And for some people, they're like, what is he talking about? But a really great analogy is every year, you should go in life to go get your annual checkups and your physicals. Kids get it for school, and, we get it for our health overall on an annual basis. And if you could look at like your screens or our screens, or, you know, there's some similarities and some differences, but at the end of the day, basically what we're telling people is take a look at really where is your health, where is your body, and then, you know, what are you going to do when you find out what that means? Like when you have a report of findings, what does that tell you, right? And you just described it as, hey, you know, I'm a power lifter, or I play golf, or I run marathons. Like I want to do what I do, but I'm hurting and I don't know that I can continue to do that. So can you help me understand how not to hurt, or how can I do things where I hurt less? Or, you know, and I think that's the really interesting about evolution, is that, you know, like-minded people who have worked really hard to understand how it's done, you know, I think that's where people are today. They have more information and opportunity, and there's more available for them to live a healthier life.
Yeah, that's totally agree with all that. I still get some athletes that will come in and be like, yeah, I train here, I train there. I want to get back to exercise for sure. Right now, this area has been bothering me with pain. Hence, they're coming to see us, and our goal is to get them back to training, right? With guys like you got, you know, like facilities at your place. Still get reports. I was like, well, I don't want to get too muscular because I'll lose my mobility. What do you say to that?
Well, I say that ignorance is innocent. Number one. I mean, it's sort of like people are like, wow, that's a brash statement from Coach Joey D, but it is. I mean, people's general ignorance is that they think bulk or mass restricts mobility. But I can, you know, argue that I can show you a dozen athletes right now that are bigger and stronger and have more muscle than we'll ever have, that are more mobile. They have more mobility, more flexibility. They have more awareness. They have more speed. So you just have to understand like where you are in the human body and where you are in your own body. I've been trying to put on a lot of muscle for my whole life, and it's still hard. I don't think everybody should be worried about that. I think that's the least of your worries. I think if you're somebody who has a tendency to gain weight and you're concerned about, you know, what's the right distribution of where should my body composition be, that's a bit better question. Like ask a better question. Don't think about if I get too muscular. I mean,
it's not easy to get very, very muscular. Like just gonna like walk in day one and be like, see, I should have done that bench press because now I'm jacked.
Yeah, there's a big misconception that you can get muscular really quick. But I think that the bigger question is, or the thing that's more relevant is, how do I maintain, you know, a healthy body that moves well, is really what you should be asking yourself. Like redirect your own question. Like what's
your answer to that?
I tell people all the time, you first have to understand how to be species specific, right? Like here's a perfect example. I won't name a name, but I'm working with a guy right now. He sat at a desk for 20 years. And in 20 years ago, he was a tennis player and he rode crew and he ran marathons. 20 years later, he never moved from his desk 12 hours a day. And he ended up having basically that C-spine and lordosis in his pelvis. Like his pelvis was tucked forward from sitting all day. And he basically became really, really unhealthy. And there's this term sometimes that you'll hear it, and it's called skinny fat, right? Like, so he goes through this body, you know, analysis, and he recognizes that he goes, I didn't think I was fat. And I'm like, the amount or the percentage of fat that you have in your body, it's not just aesthetically what people are thinking, is what's going on in your liver, what's going on in your organs, what's going on in your cells. And if you looked at him, you would think this guy is like just a normal, healthy, everyday guy. He couldn't barely move. So we start off with the basic understanding is, how do we become species specific again? Like when you think about the term anatomical neutral, right? Just standing as a human being, if we built a robot right now, like being in the center of gravity with neutral, we call it in golf, neutral setup, neutral spine, right? Like you set up athletically in the human body, it's the strongest point, right? And I think once people start to understand how to move properly again, and we start off with that, like, let's just learn how to move again. Like get down and let's do a mat activation. And what does that mean? Like they're very basic movements of creating some stability on one part of your body and some mobility on the other, and then disassociating the two. Like, if I'm just sitting here and I want to turn to the right or the left, part of my body is not moving and at the waist. And you would think about this in your field, like Those are simple things, but many times people are like, man, I'm so restricted. I can't, I feel so tight, or I can't move properly, or I get up out of a chair, my back hurts, or, you see all these things happening as a lack of movement in general. So we look at it from the standpoint of, when you start, less is more. Let's learn how to feel what you're supposed to be doing, not just going through emotion to do it.
Right.
And I think that's where people start to really understand the difference about how you should actually move, feel, train, and, live a better, healthier life, is by learning how to be species specific first as a human being. And that just depends a lot on how you live your life.
I'm sure, and I've heard a lot of your coaches and stuff say the same thing of lifestyle and habit forming or changes, right? Less is more over time, and then integrating some of the new lifestyle changes to have a better longevity, right? Versus like a quick fix or like a flash of intensity and then they fizzle out. What kind of other, besides learning how to move again and then gradually progressing their fitness game, right? I'm talking about like average individuals. What other aspects of their life would you advocate to be very influential for increasing their lifestyle, their healthy lifestyle, wellness in general?
So a really good buddy of mine owns One Life Health and I'm plugging him right now so everybody can understand I'm doing this on purpose, because I actually do it myself and I believe in where modern health is going. And I think people don't take enough time because they're afraid of cost, because one of the big problems that we have in the United States especially is healthcare, right? It's a big bone of contention in politics. It's a big bone of contention in these election years. And there's a lot of value and I think people fight to even afford healthcare today, right? But if you looked at what you spend money on, right? Even if you didn't have through your own healthcare or insurance programs, which is really sad that we're talking about this, but it's real. I would save money to go get a proper blood panel to understand what's going on inside of my body to live a better lifestyle. Because although you might appear to be healthy, right? Like, we could talk about some of the best professional athletes that have died and they're trying to understand what's happened. And I'm not saying that, fatalities and mortality doesn't exist in life. I'm just saying there's more opportunity and awareness to look at where is your health from a much more serious level. And then let's talk about not being lazy anymore as a society, right? Everybody's like, oh, what's coming up? What's the big thing that happens in January? It's coming up soon. Like, before we blink our eyes, it's January 1st.
Yeah.
Everybody has a what?
New Year's resolutions.
Well, if you and I talked about that, what if your New Year's resolution wasn't that? How about if you made a decision that you got this horrible news, right? And it says, your arteries are clogged by like 98%. And this happened to a friend of mine who thought it was a joke, and he almost died. And he took it serious for over a year and a half. And it was funny. He was like, I never understood because I thought I was fine. Yeah, he goes, I knew I needed to lose some weight. But everybody has this, let me take that back. That's not unfair. Many people in our society today have this false or this misconception of what is my reality and what is my perception of reality. I think reality has, and you would agree with this, you look at people, everything is a fast food society. I don't think people cook at home as much anymore. I think if you look at television commercials, I see more commercials for fast food than I've ever seen before. And I think eating healthy costs a lot of money.
It does.
So as I look at healthcare, I look at what you're asking me, I know I personally look at it as I am a cancer survivor, and I was diagnosed terminally ill with 10 months to live when I was 17 years and 10 months old. They gave me 10 months at best, right? So when people kind of question you and I would say you're a notable figure, right? And I think you've earned the right for people to respect you, and you get to sit on a show like yours today on this podcast. And I think the value is the questions you ask are opportunity for people that are your followers and listeners they respect you, they trust you. People who you're bringing on, you've obviously spent some time, and it's honorable to be asked to do stuff like this because you have things to say based on my experience, right? And that's where I think I would make my biggest change. And personally, I don't eat out hardly ever. And I understand the value of what goes into your body and then what happens once it gets in there. Because as somebody who fought for my life for 5 years, and then after that, it was like this dark hole, this space where everybody's like, well, you're not out of the woods. And I'm like, when are you ever out of the woods? As a cancer survivor, somebody that had it and a terminal diagnosis, you're never out of the woods. Once that happens to you, if you're fortunate enough to not, actually die from something that, takes a lot of us away, is that you make a choice to say, well, how are you going to live? And I think that's really what changed me for the rest of my life. And we talked about this yesterday. So how many people are comfortable talking about their age? I don't know. But when you get to a certain point, maybe it's like, let's not talk about my age. So I'm 59 years old. Like at the end of the day, you start thinking about different things than when you were 29 years old. And when I look at what I do on a daily basis and I hear people are like, oh, I don't have time to work out. Like, no, you do not have time to work out if you want to live a healthy life. And I think we make excuses because you work 8 or 10 hours. Well, what about putting yourself first? What about the commitment, of sacrifice that it takes to look like you? Because I looked at you the other day. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a perfect example of what I think about as a dad, as a professional, as an athlete yourself, that you exemplify. You walk the walk, essentially.
Well, I appreciate that.
Both of us do.
Yeah.
Right? And at the end of the day, I think people go, oh, you're so lucky. And I'm like, I never saw anybody who worked harder that's more lucky. Right. And I think if we can change the way that our mindset is, don't eat an elephant in one bite. Like, don't go on a drastic diet. Don't go on a quick fix training program, or don't get the next infomercial to like get you. Just take your time in understanding sometimes less is more, slower is better. And sometimes the hare doesn't win the race, the tortoise does. And at the end of the day, I think there's value in everything we can all learn from each other.
Yeah, totally. Well, I appreciate that. No, I think I've definitely heard other individuals in the past, say things like what you said, where it's like, well, you just got, it must be lucky. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, well, you didn't see the last 12 years of behind the scenes work. You know what I mean? To just wake up one day and like be in a position where somebody would consider them to be in good shape. You know what I mean? I've always really respected that, because I feel like that's something that can't be bought. It can't be bought or faked, is having a good health, physique, and body composition, and a good fitness game. Because that it only can be earned. Like, it has to be put in consistently, multiple days a week for many, many weeks, months, in order to elevate the fitness game.
Days, months, weeks, years, decades. You think about, somebody who gains an excessive amount of weight. You and I could look at it from a clinical point, right? So when you think about obesity, we might have the facts to be one of the most obese societies in the world. And I think as schools have taken away in their curriculums, like mandatory gym classes, like little things like that, we start to teach the youth that becomes the next generations of our future in our country. Like, in this world, like, what are you doing to these kids? Like, where are people missing the message is that you get one life, and how you choose to live it is up to you. But here's no mistake. When things happen or you face, your own mortality, like, now all of a sudden people are like backpedaling. And my dad did it. Like, I watched him at the end of his life, and he goes, why didn't I listen to you? And I said, it wasn't about listening to me. You can't go backwards. Yeah. Is that maybe harsh to think about something like I'm not being, sympathetic to how he felt? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, as a sample size of myself, my dad had these regrets, and it was too late. And I think before anybody gets to that point, ask yourself what you actually are capable of. Like, don't have a misconception or a false reality. Like, you're not somebody who never runs your whole life, or you're 50, 60, 100 pounds overweight, or maybe you're not even that overweight. Maybe you're barely overweight, but you're really out of shape. Like, you're not running a marathon tomorrow. It takes a while, like, to your point, to train to get to that. And not everybody wants to do that. People can win in life every day by just doing basic things that create better health and awareness, better movement. So, yeah, I think you and I are in a space where there's so much passion and opportunity to help people. So I just hope people go there.
You and at Hit It Great, I know you're there, and you work exclusive or pretty almost daily, I think, with Dustin Johnson. Right?
Yes.
You've been working with him one-on-one for
14 years.
14 years. My gosh, that's crazy.
I watched him grow up, right? He was a superstar when he was a kid. He's accomplished things that you don't really see in a career. And I think, people have an opportunity to go love him, hate him. Like, people love athletes. They don't like athletes. Like, I just think at the end of the day, if you take the personal out, you look at the athleticism, or look at Dustin now, he just turned 40 this year. He's more serious about where he is in his health, right? Like, he does the same thing, like extensive blood work and extensive treatment. And every single day, I was watching this thing called The Starting Five on Netflix, and somebody was joking to LeBron's wife, and she was on this Netflix show. He spends over $1 million a year on his body. But if you look at somebody who's another billionaire in sports, right? Like, look at his age versus what he can still do. Now, I'm not saying that's the norm. It's probably the exception to the rule. But what if he did? Like, what if we don't really know that? And he was joking about it, right? Like, he actually was talking about what people think I spent $1 million. He goes, well, first of all, foremost, I'm not going to tell you. But what if he does? At the end of the day, you're asking a great question, because if you look at him at his age right now, I mean, are you kidding me? The things that he can still do. And it's a testimony. It speaks volumes about what you just said. There were days, weeks, months, years, and decades. There's not a LeBron James every day. And I think that's really what you and I are talking about is, yes, that's an extreme example, but I can also talk about a guy that I met 20 years ago at Pebble Beach. He was 92 years old, and I would see him in the mornings before I would start my mornings. He was in that place. It was the Inn at Spanish Bay, and he was 92, and I would watch him while I was in there, and he would do his workout. It was 30 minutes. And then he would finish on the bike and the treadmill, and they get in a pool and swim laps. And I would talk to him. I'm like, how did this happen? And he just said to me, Joey D, I chose to live my life with opportunities that were there in front of me. And I just wanted to be healthy, and I wanted to enjoy what I did. So, I think at any age, in any way, we can look at people that have taken advantage of what's available.
Yeah. I totally agree. Taking it for granted, not appreciating the mortality like you were describing, as in, like, later in life, if they have other goals and they have kids, grandkids, it's like, where do you want to be at when your grandkids are walking down the aisle to get married? You know what I mean? I heard that frequently from patients that I work with, because it's really cool. I have a wide range of patients that we see in here, different life journeys, which is really cool. Really interesting conversations behind closed doors for an hour. It's pretty cool. And I've never heard anybody say, like, you know what, I wish I would have taken less days off and worked more. And I really wish I just would have not prioritized nutrition and just, like, ate out more to be quicker,
I wish I would have smoked more cigarettes and cigars. I wish I would have chewed more tobacco. I wish I would have eaten more, like, saturated fats. Like, you don't hear that.
Yeah.
But you do hear more than ever people that didn't even know, because they've had a heart attack and they were lucky or fortunate enough to get to the hospital to get a triple bypass, or to get, like, their arteries cleaned out. Like, the technology of medicine and the availability, especially cardiovascular, awareness these days, saves more lives than ever. But to get to that point versus, how about the choices that you could make that, don't get you there? And I think if we start bringing more awareness to that part of humanity, people like yourself who take the time and effort, and companies like this who you sit in a room and you're able to really, have the technology and ability to reach a lot of people. Because I think that's the biggest thing. How many people can you reach? How can we all get like-minded, get together? We might not always agree, but I can guarantee we'll agree on some things as human beings. I guarantee it, right? Yeah. Like, there's this new thing that I keep seeing on, sit down, you're watching TV, let's stop hate, right? And I think the bigger message I get is, if we can communicate better and at least be accepting of others' opinions and opportunities and ideas, maybe we grow in humanity completely. Like, yeah, hate is a one way. Let's stop bullying. Let's stop hate. Let's create more awareness of health. What does that really mean to people? People like you who are giving opportunity for listeners and people that are health-minded that want to hear your show and be with people that, like myself, have 30 years experience, that I'm fortunate enough to have been at the highest level of sports, like for 30 years. And then I see it every day in my facility. You see it, you're in there with me. I mean, I've never seen more athletes more aware of what they're doing in season, preseason, and postseason than I've ever had before. These 3 guys from AAA are in there, right? And I said to them, didn't you guys just finish? He goes, yeah, coach, we got to get ready for next year. We only have 4 months. I was like, damn, I'm impressed. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So
They, well, I was going to say, so you guys are trying to instill the awareness and some of these same values at Hit It Great for people that aren't necessarily pro athletes, college athletes. You want to tap into a demographic that they just want to level up their health, their fitness and wellness game. So you guys are targeting and trying to bring more awareness to just the general population, individuals that want to just move better, feel better,
play better,
and play better.
Yeah. And I think live better ultimately. Yeah. So we changed a little bit of our, we were pretty private for a long time. And then I just recognized that we were in an area where people just were very active, and health is a big part of.
And they're hungry for stuff like this.
Where we live, and they're hungry for opportunity. And you would say this as good as anybody. So this NFL kicker came in the other day, and he's like, Coach, it reminds me of like I'm just in my facility, because this place, this is the energy. And I think about, people say, what's different about Hit It Great? Like our academy is, there are no clocks on the walls. There's nothing to look at in there. It's basically an environment that uses space, energy, and awareness to create what you want to, which is a result of, I want to be able to be better as a human being, but better as an athlete, right? So there's a specific thing that we do there, and the way we teach is pretty specific. Like, we didn't just do it overnight, and it didn't just happen. And understanding like the forces of gravity and what is biomechanical application to human, specificity mean. And like you too, like I watched the way you treat, and we're all very like-minded in there. There's an environment that you're a part of. And I think people appreciate the opportunity to be treated as an individual. And, there's not masses. Like our business model does not require 20,000 members where you have 300 treadmills. Like that's great for whoever likes that, but that's not what we do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What would you say? I feel like I hear this a lot, questions of like a guy like Dustin Johnson, you've worked with for 14 years, watch him grow up, pinnacle of career, multiple majors, right? Championships. Yeah. What separates a world #1 ranked golfer like himself compared to a lower level tour player aspiring to be the best?
Yes.
What's the separating factor?
Interesting question. A guy asked me that today. He said, Coach, you've been doing this for a long time, because I'm a baseball player, right? I played professionally. What do you think was or is more important, the mental side of it or the physical side? And he was asking a legit question, and actually you know who he is. So I said to him, it's a combination of both, but let's be honest, right? Like there's a reason Tiger Woods is Tiger Woods. Like he didn't get lucky. Dustin didn't get lucky. Michael Jordan didn't get lucky. Tom Brady didn't get lucky. Like Federer didn't get lucky. Like they don't get lucky. Like let's be honest, like it's a natural born given talent, but there is something that to be said, and I talk about this a lot. Talent can actually hard work can outwork talent when talent doesn't work. So if you take a really, really talented athlete, and I'll use an example that in the NFL, I saw some people like T.O., or you see these really uber big superstars, and they stop working hard, and then their lifestyle gets them in trouble, and then they work even less than hard, and then they stop working at all. So yeah, are they way more talented than most players? Sure. And in golf, I think that requires a very different mindset. So for Dustin, he was always going to be better than you because he was born better, right? And his physicality is always going to be better than yours because he's just bigger, stronger, and his human ability is better. So that's the truth part, right? But here's the difference. There is never a day that goes by or the night before he goes, Jim, 8:30. I'm like, check. It's that simple, but it's that important. There's never a time where we haven't worked 6 days a week for 14 years. He takes vacations, but in the big picture, generally speaking, out of 365, I think there are 65 or 70 days because of life in itself. But if you look at an athlete at his level, as long as he's played, I promise you there's 365 in a year, and he's at least at 300 days of training. So that, and then he's very hyper aware. Like, yes, he has the means and resources to have, ability to have a chef. And you start seeing changes in people that have the means, and the ones that don't can make changes. You just have to do the work to educate yourself on how to cook like that. But the difference with him is he's already more talented than everybody else. He just worked really hard too.
Yeah. Mental game. What about, is that what you're talking about in general? Just the consistency to stay diligent as the mental game?
I think the mental game for golf, because you're always thinking and you have to start and stop and you have to analyze what's in front of you or where you are presently, right? Like, it's not basketball. Once the whistle blows, it's nonstop. You can't even, it's reactive, right? You're reacting instantaneously. Golf is completely different. It's like subjective, and let's look at the yardage book and where's the wind, and am I going to hit this ball and it's 15 degrees down, the slope is 15 degrees down, or am I hitting 10 degrees up? Like, everything is very analytical, and you think, and it's then all of a sudden you're standing there and then something starts moving 100 plus miles an hour, and then it's got to accelerate and decelerate and body transition and balance. Like, it's very different than other sports.
Yeah.
Basketball being one.
I always felt that golf is, because I grew up playing golf. Like I said, if I break 90, it's a great day for me, you know?
And most people would love to break 90.
But, I enjoy playing when I'm actually like hitting the ball somewhat well, but, so I can fully appreciate it. But I've always felt that golf is the most challenging mental game.
Well, there's more moving parts in it than any other sport. More things move.
And I was going to say, when everything you're describing, walking to your ball for the next shot, waiting for your buddy or the other player to hit their shot, there's a lot of time to think.
Well, too much time. And I think
exactly.
The mental part of it is not just being aware of everything we've talked about, but being able to, and not everybody can do this because it gets very emotional, golf, right? You hit a bad shot, there's embarrassment, there's frustration, there's question. Instead of when you watch
unsolicited advice.
Yeah. But when you watch kids play, what I love about that is I tell people that are adults, play in the mind of a child, because you forgot that golf should be fun. And even when it's not, and it's frustrating, if it's not for you, don't go out there to hate the game. Don't get angry. Don't throw your clubs in the water, snap them over your knee. Like, that stuff happens and it's real. And I get people get frustrated, but golf is very mental, and there is a lot to be said about understanding that part of it. I think they just do it at a really high level professionally.
I like that. Don't go out there to hate the game.
Yeah.
Today I'm going to go out there just to hate it.
I'm going to go out and just beat myself up. And hate this game.
That sounds great.
It's not.
Why are we here?
It's not what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. From a mental toughness standpoint, or like the sports psychology standpoint, I imagine you guys work with a lot of sports psychologists.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's another big shift from 2 decades ago.
Yeah, it's happened. We've seen that evolution. That we've seen them become a very important part of what's going on.
I've always felt that the sports psychology component of the tip of the spear athletes, Michael Jordan, Kobe, Dustin, Tiger Woods, LeBron, that the psychology game is also such a top priority. Because everybody's very physically talented. Like, they're physically, the attributes physically, right?
Sure.
Of NBA players going in the NBA, right? NFL players, golf, people, they have the ability to hit great shots. I'm sure a lot of them, golfers aspiring that want to make tour cards and they're struggling or whatever, they're not able to win like they want to win. I'm sure they've won plenty of club championships at their home course, right? And done well.
Yeah.
So then why can't they put it together when it's needed?
Well, here's a great example. If you look at other sports, college players who were phenomenal in college but never made it in the next level to the pros, right? Like there's a huge separation of what happens out there, and the pressure of not knowing the courses, the pressure of not being able to handle travel, the pressure of not having consistencies, those things all factor in. And I think you start to see the separation of winning a club championship is very different than winning a professional event. Like I hear about, and I've seen this in my career, players that boast that they could play just as good as any pro on any given day, right? And I think,
it's a bold statement.
You got to really understand what you're saying, because they didn't get there by accident, and they actually are just that much better than you. And I think acceptance is the biggest thing I see people that are aspiring professionals lack. Like I work with a guy that's 40 years old, and he was confident that he's going to go win this because they give out a certain amount of spots at Augusta. And he's like, I got this. So he trains with me for, 2 months, and he misses, and he comes back with his tail between his legs. I said, you just have to accept what your reality is, right? And acceptance is something we don't, I think, as human beings in society, do very well with, right? I think we have expectations of ourselves that we think we can do things, but it's not for a lack of passion or work or desire or, the ability of time you put in. It's just the facts that they're that much better. And that's a big difference. I've watched it. I've watched really great college players. I mean, I have one that I work with. He was Ivy League Player of the Year. He won everything in high school. He got to college. He was a superstar. He couldn't play a lick on tour. He ended up going back to finance and being a superstar because he was brilliant. And I thought it was great that he made that decision. And I said to him one day when I saw him, I said, man, you finally grew up. That's good. He goes, yeah, by the way, I wasn't better than they were. I'm like, yeah, I know.
It's all right.
It's okay. You're great at what you do.
What do you in that specific situation, what was the separating factor?
He just didn't have the skill set. Like he practiced like they do. Like he put the time in. At the end of the day, executing on a driving range or playing a practice round is a very different set of circumstances than when you have 144 guys in the field that are every bit better than you or as good as you. And the guys that actually, that are more talented are just naturally more talented. So they have better hand-eye coordination. They have better ability to visualize what's going on. They're seemingly just better ball strikers. Like everything they do naturally and gifted is better than you. And I think, there are levels that you can get there, but to make the cut is amazing itself, because obviously in golf, like you think about, you got 2 days, and if you're not in the top 7 of your ties, you go home and you don't get paid. It's a crazy sport. It's not for a lack of you didn't try. And then there are times that you'll see guys miss cut after cut, and they'll come back and they'll get a top 10, or you'll see somebody win out of nowhere, and then the next week they miss the cut again. So is there a rhyme or reason? No, I think it's about, the reality of golf is hard. There's 70. Think about if every other sport had to play it 4 days to win one event.
Yeah.
Right? Like you got to be on your game 4 days in a row.
And practice round.
Yeah.
And traveling.
So it's everything we just
And
said.
then fitness workouts and
it's all
mobility work in between.
Sleep and recovery and travel and nutrition. And it's crazy. Yeah.
When you would travel with guys, how would you manage your own nutrition, your own fitness? Because I know it's challenging.
Yeah.
Everything you said.
I just think for me, if you roll it all the way back to how I grew up when I was a kid, it was 3 square meals. I came from a family that was my dad was military. Like there was no McDonald's. You didn't go, like there was no, so it was instilled in me from a young age. And then as I found out, I had cancer, then I'm like, oh shoot, this is bad. What do I do now? And then when you finally realize you're not going to die, because you contemplate that for somebody says you got 10 months to live, right? Like now you're going, well, I can't figure that one out. That was a mind bender.
Yeah.
But I do make it through, and thank goodness. I had great doctors and surgeons and people around me. And I recognized that it was about how I chose to live every day after that. And here I am at 59. And I think you know this too. Every day I do a triathlon. Every single day. There's 7 days in a week. I'm doing it every day. And it was funny. I was actually, doing one when we had this rainy season. I was the only person out there, and somebody who saw me, who's another coach, goes, "Are you out of your mind?" And I'm like, "Yeah, just enough to know that I want to live every day without any restrictions or limitations." So for me, it's about planning. It's about discipline. It's about, some people eat to live and some people live to eat. Like, I have to be able to know that what I'm putting in my body, it matches my blood work and it makes me feel the way I feel on a daily basis. You know, then I go in and you see me working with Dustin. I've chosen to work with him, not coach him traditionally. And that's worked for us. It doesn't work for everybody, but you know, it's just part of how I feel. And my sleep is a huge thing. When it's off, everything's off. You as a father, you know, you when the kids don't sleep at night, you're not on your best game the next day. No. So I think the benefit of what we're talking about today is, if I had to wrap it all up and say, listen, here's the thing. We have more information. We have better, you know, opportunity with nutrition and medicine and physical therapy or training, and just life has given us better opportunity to make better decisions. And I think anybody listening to this today say, hey, what was the Joey D thing about? Right? Well, it was never about me today. It was about you and I kind of getting together as co-professionals and thinking about what's cool in the world. Like, how can we contribute? And I think, yeah, like my book, you know, I wrote my book because it's very anecdotal in a way, but it's very scientific in a way, but it wasn't written to be over anybody's head. Like, we didn't do it purposefully. We actually, you know, wrote that book to make sure everybody was able to take something out of it and understand it. And in it, the athletes that are within the book actually do what they're a part of why the book happened, because they believe in that lifestyle and those methods. And I think, you know, people love to selfishly plug, but I like to say that I've had opportunity to share information. That's kind of where I see things. Yeah. I think you're doing the same thing with this podcast.
Well, that's the goal, you know, trying to capture and reach a lot of people. And
because we can't all see them physically.
Right.
They're never going to be able to make it to Jupiter or here to West Palm. Like, not everybody can do that, but everybody can listen to your podcast.
Yeah, totally.
So I hope it was fun.
Well, I appreciate you coming in and sharing insights and a lot of your experience and stuff like that. I think it's always really cool to get a lot of, all the great insights and opinions, you know?
Yeah. And I think for me, not dissimilar to you, at some point you start to get enough years of experience where, you know, they say 10,000 hours to become a foremost expert. And you can give or take depending on the field, but I would think that not only that is true, but I think that constantly wanting to be a student. Like, I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I like other people to understand that it's about everybody has a gift. Everybody has something to contribute. And I think the authenticity of wanting to be in the field you and I are in, or if we can help one person today, you and I have done something really good. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. I always get a lot of fulfillment. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody comes in and like, they're like, what's going on? Here's the questions I usually ask. What's going on? Like, what's the issue? Why did it start? How do we fix it? And then how do we prevent it from coming back? Right. Yeah. Oftentimes people are very confused and they don't know what's going on. And then what does the prognosis look like? Right. Am I ever going to get back to playing golf again? Am I ever going to be able to do this without back pain? Like, is my back pain going to get solved or am I just going to like despondently live in pain for the rest of my life? You know what I mean? Just manage it with Advil. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm very confident based on what you're telling me. And I'm going to do everything I can, right, to get things feeling better. You know what I mean? Or our team, whatever. We really enjoy the result when they are like, I feel really good. Like, I haven't felt this good in 6 months. You know what I mean?
Pretty good. It's pretty gratifying.
It's cool, you know?
And I think
we've had like, it's just impactful. We've had people shed tears, sharing their story.
So it is that emotional,
which is really cool. And I'm like, I appreciate that.
You don't really know unless you've actually had severe pain or injury, how debilitating it is emotionally, to the point where people can become suicidal or have thoughts that serious. So yeah, of course, you and I live in a world where people that put in the work, and I think you just said we do all that we can. Well, that's one part of it. What are you doing as the patient, as the actual person asking for help? What's your participation? Yeah. And that's the big question. Yeah, how do you want to live your life? What's your choice?
Yeah, totally. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming in.
Well, thanks for having me. I hope everybody enjoyed this as much as I did. And I want to say this again. I think, Dr. Kyle is somebody who has impressed me in life. We don't grow very quickly at Joey D Golf and Hit It Great. And you being somebody who has added a ton of value to our space. I want to thank you for that. Thank you for this podcast. It takes time, effort, and energy. And how convenient you got this amazing space. So thank you to the people right here.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And I look forward at some point. Maybe we'll touch base on a different subject again. But just remember today's message here on the Land the Plane: move better, feel better, play better, and live better.
Cool. That's awesome, man. Thank you.